This isn't underage drinking that was kind of speculated on Reddit, Mike. This is suspected money laundering and illegal gambling, which is pretty damn big.
It's the PokerNews Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to PokerNews Podcast, episode 945. I'm Chad Holloway, joined by Mike Holtz and Ben Ludlow in Las Vegas. A special episode as we are going to update you on the latest regarding the lodge in Texas, which was raided last Tuesday. It was breaking news for us on the last episode as we were recording. This started going down. It wasn't on our initial outline, but it ended up being this convoluted mess, if you will. We didn't have a lot of information. There's a lot of speculation. We're going to do some speculation at the end of this episode, but we have a lot more facts to share. Specifically, I'll start with a statement that was just released by the lodge earlier today as we're recording this. It is an acknowledgement of what went down, saying that they don't have a lot of information, but unfortunately the lodge is closed. It has been closed since the raid. So in the statement, I don't want to read the entire thing, but some highlights from it was, quote, "As much as we like to provide a detailed update, we are unable to do so at this time because, despite our legal team's best efforts to obtain additional information from the authorities, very little information has been made available." We do know, thanks to a statement from the authorities, specifically the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission. They were the ones who did this raid. They issued a statement via the Director of Communications, Chris Porter, to Poker News and other media outlets saying, quote, "The Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission's Financial Crimes Unit, along with members of the Special Investigations Unit and Operations Bureau, executed a search and seizure warrant at the Lodge Card Club in conjunction with an ongoing investigation into suspected money laundering and illegal gambling." Mike, Ben, this is where I'll bring you in. This isn't underage drinking that was kind of speculated on Reddit, Mike. This is suspected money laundering and illegal gambling, which is pretty damn big.
Yeah, it's going to be a much bigger issue than underage gambling. Here's one thing I want to say is there's no charges so far, right? They haven't charged anyone. They haven't announced what they were there for. Generally, when you raid a place, speaking from personal experience, you know immediately with the warrant what they're looking for. Generally, someone gets charged right away, especially if they're seizing evidence and stuff. So I find the way that the ABC is going about this to be a little bit odd that no one's been charged yet. The lodge has said that it's a witch hunt. Now, whether you believe that or not might depend on your opinions of Doug Polk and the other people. I personally trust Doug Polk. He's been a member of the community for a long time. He's very wealthy. So to me, it seems like money laundering. Like that would be very shocking. I don't want to pass judgment, but it's a pretty interesting situation, and we need more facts to make a conclusion on this.
Yeah, Ben, you weren't with us last episode because you were on vacation in Mexico. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts when you first heard about the raid and now kind of where things stand after the statement.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard it, it was obviously very concerning. My first thought was to all the people who work at the lodge, which we know lots of. There's hundreds of people who play there, work there every day. I mean, my first reaction too, not to speculate, was that, wow, this seems like a witch hunt. Can't wait to see more details, because if it's really money laundering, this is an insanely huge story in poker. It makes me worry about the precedent this sets. It makes me worry about Texas poker as a whole. That was kind of my first reaction, is very much like, it's less to me about what actually happened at the lodge and what is going to, come of this, and more, what is this going to mean for, perhaps the newest, biggest market in poker at the moment. So, I was very worried and very curious, and unfortunately, we have a few more details, but we haven't gotten a ton. Like Mike said, usually when a raid like this happens, we know exactly why right away. They say, well, this. Right now, it seems like they're just in evidence gathering mode, and no one's been charged. And unfortunately, that doesn't mean that we're going to get resolution anytime soon. If this is just an evidence gathering thing, then this could go on for a while. There's no deadline the government has to, if it's for a specific thing, sometimes they have 60 to 90 days of before they have to formally file charges. Well, right now we don't kind of have anything there, so this could go on indefinitely in theory, which is the scariest part of it all.
Yeah. To get into the timeline a little bit, as I mentioned, it was raided on Tuesday. We didn't know exactly what was going on. There was a lot of speculation in a Reddit thread that sprung up. The World Poker Tour, they were slated to host a wildcard event this weekend, over the weekend. They announced that they were going to postpone that, obviously, with the club closed. So that event didn't take place. I will say it was good timing. Good timing. Like, all things considered, the lodge had just wrapped up one of their major main events the day before the raid, which thankfully, so those players were all squared. But we do know that funds were seized. There's nothing official. I have heard through the grapevine and through sources that over $1 million in cash was seized. Assuming they keep a lot on hand, as most card clubs do, but also that chips were seized. I've seen posts on social media of people trying to sell 5K chips for $3,500 because they're worried they might not get full value for it.
Really?
It's true. And Doug Polk, though, has said, quote, he did put a message on social media: "I have personally guaranteed that all player funds will be safe as this witch hunt from the TABC plays out." So, like, I too agree with you, Mike, in terms of Doug. I've seen on social media other people saying that if there's anybody they trust in the poker world, it is Doug. That being said, I will also say this: is I've been around the poker world long enough to know that there are people who have done things in the poker world that I've thought, I never thought that would come from them. So you just kind of never know. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the way I look at it, though, with Doug is that he has so many other sources of income. He just sold Upswing Poker. He's got Code Doug and all this stuff. Like, he has more than enough money personally to cover all of the lodges. Let's say they seize all of it and never give any of it back. Doug guaranteeing that to me, I feel like that's $5,000 just for $3,500. Doug's guaranteeing them. I'll buy every single one of those. That's pretty. You know what I mean? Like, I really do trust Doug, and I think that he will. I would bet a large sum of money that he will make sure everyone's whole no matter what the situation is. Hopefully it's just a witch hunt. Like you said earlier, Ben, the fact that the San Antonio club hasn't been involved in this Austin part, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that would make me feel like, again, it is just more of like an evidence gathering activity. I mean, and to your point, I do. I'm on the same page with you guys. I trust Doug. I feel like, again, if there's anyone in this poker world who doesn't need to kind of undertake some enormous, money laundering operation that's going to provide extra income, it's him. That being said, I mean, it's hard to really track all that kind of stuff. Like, I think the most likely kind of scenario, again, not to speculate, is that like something is happening that the guys like Doug and whoever aren't involved in. There could be private games.
Sure.
There's all sorts of things that like, it could be happening right under our noses. And that happens in Las Vegas casinos and casinos all over the world every day, where people are coming in, cashing out chips that were, made with money nefarious ways, and then just kind of like cleaning the money. And again, I mean, that's almost impossible to nail down in sort of a large way. But
yeah, if you're a business, if you're the lodge, let's say, and you have people coming in laundering money through games, that has nothing to do with the lodge, in my opinion. Now, that's something that Texas certainly could go after them for, in what I would describe as a witch hunt, if this was the case. Yeah. The way I look at it is, Doug's not the only investor or owner of the club, right? And you guys are more knowledgeable on the law, especially Chad, the lawyer. So he may know, how does this work exactly with investors? Like, let's say you have an investor, somebody comes in and invests 3%, and it turns out, they're laundering money. I don't know. You can look online and see that Nick Airball and Rampage invested in the lodge about 10 months ago, and that's very public information. Now, again, just speculation, but could an investor be involved in something like that? Let's say owning a Club GG club and then filtering their money through there or something.
Yeah, so I'm not a lawyer, number one. I had like a year of law school, but just so people don't take my what I have to say to heart. But I will get into that in a minute. I do want to say, in the timeline of events, I want to pick up. So at the raid itself, so I actually seen a video, which unfortunately can't share. I did not have permission to share it, and it was since deleted. But of a player who was there during the raid, players were lined up against the wall. Nobody was arrested, so nobody was taken into custody. As Mike mentioned, no formal charges have been filed against anybody at this point in time. But the TABC told Polk and others, don't reopen until the investigation is concluded. And we don't know when that's going to be. Now, apparently, players were told when the raid happened to take their chips home, bring them back later to cash out when the card room reopens. Who knows when that's going to be? We know that the raid was by the TABC officials along with some other, like the IRS was involved, some IRS agents were there, but one that wasn't, which I thought was interesting, a public information officer with the Round Rock Police Department, which this is in Round Rock, Texas. We say Austin, Texas, Round Rock, a suburb of that. That's where the lodge is. A public information officer with the Round Rock Police Department confirmed that their law enforcement agency, the local agency, was not involved with the raid or with this legal matter, which is interesting to me because I actually think the lodge has a lot of support from Round Rock and from the local community because of the amount of people that they employ and in the manner in which they do it. So I thought that was an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me feel even more like this is bigger than that, that this is, to Mike was talking about investors. Obviously, if there's some sort of larger thing at play, that there's a federal investigation with one of the investors, this would be a great way for them to start gathering evidence on some investor or something, if there's potential there. But that being said, yeah, it just makes me feel more and more like, this wasn't, this is more of a regulatory big picture thing than it is the lodge is doing something nefarious in Round Rock thing. I think all the evidence that we've seen so far is pointing to that and kind of adding to that. That's my reaction to that piece.
Yeah, the lodge did send out an email 2 days after the raid informing players of the situation, of what happened, that their attorneys were working to understand the reasons behind the search. This was before the officials gave the statement about money laundering and illegal gambling, but that they would remain closed. And they're closed now. And as we've said, there's no timeline to this. In the most recent statement released by the lodge, they say they have more than 200 staff members rely on the lodge for their livelihoods, and many of our members have funds tied up in chips or pending tournament payouts. We understand the concern, frustration, and we want everyone to know that it is not being taken lightly. That is the frustrating thing on this, is we don't know. No charges have been filed. There's no timeline to this. I don't see this being a short matter. I see this extending for probably many months at a minimum, because that's usually how the wheels of bureaucracy and the court system turn. And when you don't even know what charges you're facing, you don't know against who, you can't really move forward on any of that stuff. And I think that's kind of shitty on authorities' part to have not released more with so many people's livelihoods tied up in this, I don't know. What do you guys make of the kind of being in limbo situation and how authorities have been relatively tight-lipped so far?
So, I mean, I think it's outrageous, honestly. If unless you have like the most solid case of all time, for me, you're not. If you don't leave the lodge with someone in handcuffs immediately and have charges, to me, this doesn't make sense. Why are we rating it? You know what I mean? It's been 5 days now. Nothing's come out. Like they have over 200 employees. These people have to make a living. Now they no longer are employed, especially in an economy like this where so many people are living paycheck to paycheck. It's like a really, really terrible thing for the locals, and it's just unfortunate because let's say they came in and they gave them. I mean, you can't give them some sort of notice, right? If there is something nefarious, it's going to happen. But it would be unfortunate if this turns out to be something nonsensical and these employees have been let go for no reason. Now, if it comes out that something did happen, that one of these guys is involved as laundering money or doing something really wild, that would be surprising and shocking to me. I don't think that's going to be the conclusion, but I've been wrong before. In my mind, no matter almost assuredly, whatever's happening here could have been handled in a different way. And I may eat crow for that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, again, like it's just terrible for all the people involved. Luckily, the poker community is resilient and supportive, and there's been lots of things popping up about, finding employees side gigs while this is going on, people doing kind of GoFundMe type stuff. So I hope that eases some of the pain of all of this. But yeah, to your point, it's terrible. And exactly what I would do if I was a government official who hated Texas poker, hated this loophole, and wanted to kind of test to see how this business could hold up while it's closed, or test to see if they're really, operating within the law. You take some evidence, you shut them down, you make them sweat. That's going to just be tough for every Texas poker room. This precedent is just is tough.
I think it's important for people to remember how Texas poker rose in the first place, right? So I used to be much more well-versed in it, so I won't be able to recall names exactly offhand, but it harkens back to probably close to a decade ago at this point. In Houston, the first rooms that opened there operating under this gray area, this loophole of memberships not taking rake. They started this, and the DA down there at the time went after them. But they did so in what ended up being... again, I wish I would have studied this before we came on here. There was something in it that it was non-ethical. She was in cahoots with somebody else, and all charges ended up getting dropped, and basically was told, you can't go after them again. You had one chance at it, you fumbled the ball, and sorry, that doesn't happen. And so as a result, these card rooms started to build, right? And that's how the whole Texas poker community ended up growing, especially in Houston, and then it spread out from there. It was because the DA was kind of figuratively handcuffed from pursuing it any further. And then they only grew in stature, right, in strength and spread. Now, that being said, is the future when you operate in a gray area is at the whims of whatever politician might be in power, whether that's local, state, federal, what have you. And so there could have been somebody in Texas, the wrong person they caught the attention of, who decided, this is wrong, let's make an example of them, let's go after them. We're starting to see that a little bit more on a wider scale federally, with prediction markets. I'm seeing more and more politicians saying, come on, guys, this is gambling, this isn't prediction. So that's kind of a short background of poker in Texas. And as Ben mentioned, or Mike, I can't remember which one of you just said it, the Lodge is the biggest card room in Texas. So to go after them is really a big statement.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising to me, that it would be the Lodge. I would have thought it was a different place. And honestly, I hope it's something benign, or I hope some wires got confused and everything happened, because it was a great place to play, and poker's booming in Texas. I mean, there's so many places to play, and for them to only go after one for money laundering, I feel like it's got to be something to do with the Lodge, obviously. So hopefully Texas poker can keep thriving. Hopefully this is just something that is, something was filed incorrectly, and a politician or a DA wants to go after them for some crazy reason. Hopefully it's something like that, but we're going to have to wait and see, it seems like.
Yeah, I'll say one good thing about the lodges, and they said this in the statement. I'll actually read this part. They said, the lodge has always taken its obligation to operate lawfully very seriously. The leadership team is committed to ensuring that the lodge operates transparently, responsibly, and good faith within Texas law by emphasizing strengthened oversight and continued improvement of operations. I will say, having visited more than 24 rooms in Texas, that the lodge certainly came across that way as one of the more professionally operated, that they haven't shied away, right? They're not trying to operate in the dark and in the shadows, if you will. Doug Polk was out there advocating for legal poker in Texas and trying to get a new room established at local town hall meetings and things like that. So the lodge, I do think, has taken that obligation very seriously. They did say in the statement as well, quote, as much as we would like to provide a detailed update, we are unable to do so at this time because I think I read this. Despite our legal team's best efforts to obtain additional information from the authorities, very little information has been made available. And then adding, unfortunately, we do not know how long this process will take or when we will be allowed to operate again. We obviously believe that the longer our doors remain closed, the greater the impact becomes, not just on the business itself, but on hundreds of staff members, vendors, partners, and community members who rely on the lodge every day. And I think that's an interesting point right there is, it sucks to have the poker room closed. It sucks that these people are currently out of work, and it sucks that players are not able to play there and are in limbo if they have chips and things like that. But this is a business. They've signed agreements with vendors. They probably have a lease at the place that they're at. Those sort of things don't stop as well, right? And those expenses from a business standpoint can add up pretty damn quick, especially when you have no income coming in.
Yeah, I mean, It's that again, and that's the most terrible part, is all the people involved. Obviously, this is good for the city economically. This is good for the market economically. Like, all of these things are good. And I think, Chad, to your point, and Mike, to your point, you know, of all the places you're surprised the Lodge, and I was just looking up, the Lodge opened almost exactly 8 years ago. So they've been dealing with this for almost a decade. They've been in the weeds of the regulation in Texas for almost a decade. Like, I bet they've got some pretty weapon lawyers too. You know, and like you said, Doug was going to town hall meetings. Obviously, there was the whole big moment where they were trying to open a room in Dallas and eventually got turned down. But they've been so involved in this. Like, it would shock me that if they weren't the most buttoned up club in Texas in terms of how they operate, how they're doing what they do. Because when you think of Texas poker, you think of them. When you think of kind of like pushing I don't want to say pushing the boundaries, because that seems like it has a negative connotation. But when you're sort of like pushing this forward and kind of building this market, like, they have been at the forefront, and they have been at the forefront of trying to not only that, but show everyone the exact law, the exact rules they need to follow, like all the things that that go into opening one of these rooms. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that they haven't gotten more information is sort of curious to me, because if they had information, I'm sure they'd be like, all right, well, here's the information you're giving us on what you think we did wrong. Like, we got it all. We're ready to show you, you know, our books. Like, it doesn't seem like they have anything to hide or should have anything to hide. And again, if there is, then it's probably, again, here we go into speculation. Sorry, but happening under someone's nose, and probably not to do with the founders themselves. So
we do know that servers were seized. I've heard that. So, right, all the computer electronics,
servers
some people
seized.
and
I thought you meant like waiters and waitresses. There's like a big detention center in Austin with all.
No, that was the ICE raid the week before that. Was that's when they got the servers.
Right. Jesus Christ.
Some people's cell phones were taken, from what I understand, not players, but people associated with the club itself. I do want to talk about, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Mike, to start, and then you can chime in, but Poker News did an article called Why No One Should Be Gloating Over the Lodge Poker Room Raid by my colleague John Sofin, who is very tied in with covering the Texas poker scene. And he made a good point, because a lot of the initial reaction when news broke that it was associated with money laundering and illegal gambling from the statement that was put out by authorities, a lot of people automatically just jumped to, Doug Polk, Brad Owen, Andrew Nemi, all these guys are scumbags and they're doing something, terrible, illegal, blah, 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 which I think is taken out of context by quite a margin. But a lot of people piled on. I think a lot of people like to pile on because Doug Polk has a history of kind of piling on people, right? He's done his investigations and his videos and calling out others. And I think a lot of people like the irony of now it's kind of turned back on him, even if that was a bit unfair. But Mike, what did you make about some people's gloating, if you will, over the raid?
I thought it was sad and pathetic, honestly, especially Tom Dwan. I thought he should just shut the fuck up, because he owes people millions and millions of dollars in unpaid debts, and he's on Twitter going on some sort of psychotic rant, talking shit on Doug Polk for a business that he's built, literally psychotic, trying to build a brand and make poker better. Now, is Doug Polk getting a bunch of money from this and et cetera? Of course he is. But at the same time, there's no one in the poker community who can say, oh, man, it's a terrible thing for us that Texas has been playing poker. We should all be happy, recreationals, professionals, et cetera, that Texas or anywhere with a large population is enjoying poker, growing the game. I've never seen anything where it was like, the Lodge tries to outlaw through lobbying, gambling, and poker in other places. It's like, no, I've never seen anything from anyone. You mentioned Nemi, Brad Owen, Doug Polk. All three of them are, in my opinion, upstanding gentlemen who I would never expect money laundering or anything from. So hopefully this just turns out to be some sort of miscommunication or some sort of just an overzealous person going after them. But I think anyone gloating about it, it's just by far it's bad behavior. And I don't think you'd say that to their faces. I think you say it over the internet. But it's not something, if you're one-on-one with them, you'd be like, hey, man, ha, ha, ha. You know what I mean?
Yeah, along those lines, real quick, Brad Owen ended up engaging with somebody on a thread on a Twitter post that I had about the initial raid. The original poster has deleted his post, but there was some back and forth at the time, and Brad Owen engaged, and he said a couple things that I thought was a little bit interesting, maybe a little revealing. I'm not quite sure. He did say in one response, it had nothing to do with anything anyone on our team did, my guy, in response to the guy who was, of course, chiming in negatively. Which is interesting to have somebody who is part owner of the club, who is in the know, to say it has nothing to do with anyone, has nothing to do with anything anyone on our team did. Makes you wonder if it was, outside potential money laundering. Some of the players who were playing in the game, right?
How much do you think Brad Owen regrets making the post about being down a bunch of money right before all this stuff popped out?
Man.
So I'm losing all my money. They're like, money laundering. He's like, shit.
Damn it.
Shit, that doesn't look good.
Brad also said no one did anything except operate a poker room, so there's no pawning it off on anyone. And another tweet said some people don't like poker in Texas. Unfortunately, that is what happens. Like all my dealings over the years with Brad, Andrew, Doug Polk have been positive. I would be shocked and surprised if there are serious misgivings that come to light that they've been involved in. Anything is impossible, is possible. Like I said, I've seen it with people. I thought that before, but my gut tells me, and this is where we can get into some speculation here towards the end of the episode. There are theories out there that have been bounced around on social media. Everybody kind of said, well, what if it's associated with this? My gut tells me that it probably has something to do either with players that were playing at the lodge and maybe laundering money in that regard. I've heard, and the Club WPT Gold is another operator in a bit of a gray area, right? And Doug Polk did get involved with them selling upswing there. And so then all of a sudden there's a connection with the lodge. I could see perhaps there's some sort of connection there, but equally so, I think it could have nothing to do with anything poker, wider poker world, and could just be overzealous Texas authorities going in there, doing a money grab, and seizing assets like they've been known to do outside the poker world. So I think all things are on the table here. I'm curious to hear what you guys think this might be about, or theories that you might have heard.
Yeah, my gut is, if you haven't watched Molly's Game and you're listening to this, go watch it because it's a great movie. And I think it's just an interesting kind of Mike's not a man of culture. I am. So right. I'll say objectively it's a good movie.
I've never seen it.
Oh, see?
It is a good movie. Right. I got your back.
Anyway, so I think what happens a lot of times in things like this, and this is my gut feeling of what's going on, is that there's some bigger thing at play. I don't want to say bigger necessarily, but some other intention where they gather evidence for something else under the guise of, oh, we're looking at money laundering, we're doing this. They're being very coy. They haven't given them any information. My gut is that there's some other illegal entity or something or person that's playing at the lodge, running a game at the lodge that, is money laundering for some nefarious thing, and that they've gotten caught up in that. That this is part of some other investigation, and that this is their first step in sort of like trying to pin someone down who's a player at the lodge or running a game at the lodge. No, but honestly, I don't have any crazy conspiracy theories with this. It might be something interesting some mob thing, and they're using the lodge to launder money in some way. I think, honestly, though, the most likely thing is that they're just trying to stress test Texas poker. They're trying to make sure that the biggest card room in the state is operating properly, that this is a little bit of a witch hunt, that they're trying to kind of take on Texas as a whole, and this is the first step. But it would be much more interesting if it was Mike's fault, so...
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, it would be. I don't know. I think it's most I don't know. From what it sounds like, I trust Brad Owen. The fact that he would go out in public after speaking to lawyers and everything and say, "My guy, it's not something that anyone on our team done." That wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if it comes out that we have a Pepe guy playing the games. They got a group of people playing the games. They're doing some sort of money laundering, and an overzealous person in Texas said, "Shit. They don't even have a license. This is just a random business. I can run up in here and do whatever I want. There's no sort of gambling thing behind this to protect them. There's no unions." If this happened in Las Vegas, if the lodge thing happened in Las Vegas, I would say, whoa, they did some bad shit. You don't know what they did. it happening in Texas makes me go, I don't know, man. I don't think I mean, I personally don't trust the Texas authorities to do what's right for poker. I don't think they know what they're doing with poker, and I think that that there's a very, very high chance, in my mind at least, that this is to do with something that doesn't involve the ownership, or it doesn't involve the actual business in general, the actual operation, where it's something behind the scenes where they're taking one little piece of evidence and they're going, let's run with this, because someone can make their career on that. If you're a DA, you're a politician, you're whatever, you hit a big place like this, high fives all around, promotion, boom, you don't care the aftermath of it, you did that shit. So hopefully it's something like that.
I want to say this, like, I know that Doug is chomping at the bit to want to address this, to put out a video explaining and laying out the situation. He has been advised by legal counsel, rightfully so, not to speak about it further and to do something like that. But no, if you know Doug Polk, you know that that's something he's definitely chomping at the bit to do.
For sure. He wants a video. It'll be his most viewed YouTube video of all time. Of course this guy wants this video out. But I think this just, it just it takes me more to just like the macro situation of poker. We don't have legal online poker in the US. We all play, on unregulated sites here and there. We play at unregulated places like the Lodge that we are believing are operating under best practices. And I believe that they are operating under best practices and doing everything in their power to operate within the law. But it just goes to show the situation is shitty. It sucks as a player. It sucks as a worker, wherever, that you have to rely on some place that maybe isn't totally, that it isn't for super protected. It is operating under some sort of loophole, and this is the state of poker a little bit outside of, our legal markets or whatever in Las Vegas and the places that we're all okay. Like, this is going to happen. It just sucks that this is the risk that we have to run to play a fucking card game where you can yeah.
I was just going to say it's unfortunate that they can't just come together and just say, hey, let's go ahead and authorize the legal use of poker rooms instead of closing places like the Lodge down. Now it's like, oh, okay, you want to go? Now you go to River Roberto's down the hill in Colleen. You know what I mean? 25. It's in a bar, but you're good. Yeah. It's like that's not where they got to play. It's like, oh, you got robbed there. Oh, you could have gone to. Oh, that's not open. Sucks to suck. Yeah. So it's unfortunate. There should just be legal poker everywhere. Give me a reason why we can't have that, but we can have prediction markets, DraftKings, FanDuel, sports betting on every corner. I go to Robinhood on my IRA. It's like, you want to put money on the Patriots next year? It's like, fuck no, I don't. And nobody should be allowed to do that. But oh, wait a second. God forbid we play a strategy game for money. Like, oh God, tyranny is happening everywhere. Anyway.
Poker News, of course, is going to keep our fingers on the pulse of this story. Coincidentally, and it really was just not myself, but others within Poker News, John Sofin and others, had another Texas road trip planned and are going to be down there here this coming, I think, the next 2 weeks or so, visiting different rooms. And so John, I'm sure, will be talking to different people, learning what he can, maybe trying to interview those willing and able to speak. So rest assured, we're going to have lots of articles and more coverage of this on PokerNews.com. You can go there, read the full statement right now. We will be back on Thursday with a regular episode, which I'm sure will have yet another update on this. I will end this episode with a Twitter post that I just think right now encompasses where things currently stand regarding the Lodge situation. It was by Jason Team 651, said, 200 plus employees out of work, players left in limbo, assets frozen, still no charges filed, outrageous government overreach, shameful.